The LMC casts a wide net over the Sound Shore to bring you local event info, profiles, and conversations. Recorded in the heart of the village in Mamaroneck Cinemas at the studio on the Avenue, LMC Media brings you the LMC Cast Community Profiles.
Hey guys, Matt Sullivan here, Executive Director of LMC Media at the beautiful studio on the Avenue located in downtown Mamaroneck, New York. And I am thrilled to be here today with a good friend of mine. He is the president of the Alliance for Community Media, Mr. Mike Wassenaar. Mike, thanks for joining us on the show.
It's great to be here, Matt. Love the studio, and it's always a pleasure to get a chance to chat with you.
Well, the pleasure is all mine. Now, I have to ask because I'm hearing this great voice. I've heard this for many years. Tell me a little bit about your history and career moving into the ACM.
Sure. So I got started working in media when I was a teenager. I was involved with some creative writing programs, but I got work in youth radio when I was 14. So all during high school, I would do 3 hours a day of radio live, all sorts of things, news, sports, music, and literally, it's like that became sort of the backbone for how I built a career in communications. It was like basically learning to express myself and connect with other people on air. That led to a series of radio jobs. I worked in public radio after college, and then I worked in community-based radio for about 10 years in the 1990s. That's like a tradition of like teaching people how to use their skills to express themselves and to connect with other people over radio and audio. So it's very much parallel to what happens within community television, but it's just simply a different technology, a little simpler. Sure. A little simpler. You can do radio products by yourself if you want. So in a lot of ways, it's easier to organize volunteers. And then that led me to work in community television. I took a job in St. Paul, Minnesota, running a community television organization, serving a city of about 250,000 people. Wow. Doing a lot of educational work, a lot of vocational training, a lot of original productions, and a lot of work with folks that were non-English speaking communities, because there's a significant population in the Twin Cities that doesn't speak English. And we're trying to find ways to do things that were meaningful in people's lives and create media that help them connect with other people. And that's really been a passion for me. So starting, at the sort of first days when I'm 14, it's like puberty happens, your voice changes, you have to find a career. After that, it's been this sort of steady progression of doing work in media with other people, helping to connect other people together.
Well, you've certainly done that, and in the time that I've known you, connecting media centers from around the country. Tell me a little bit about the Alliance for Community Media, the work that you're doing there, and really the mission of bringing all of our community media centers together in a place of advocacy and support. So,
we're an organization of organizations. We have member organizations in 42 states, basically from Maui to Maine. And communities as large as New York City. All of the boroughs are members of the organization, for example, but also in small townships in parts of New England and parts of the rural West. Those organizations are not really the same because they reflect the needs of local communities, but they are the same because they're all responsive to local needs. Right. That's the kind of thing that's the beautiful part about what we see within the Alliance for Community Media. I end up sort of running a three-ring circus of those folks, helping to support them in their work, do professional education training, networking, professional development, but then also advocacy work at the local, state, and federal level to make sure we've got an environment that supports those organizations to help people connect with one another. In media like this.
Right. And what are some of the changes that you've seen in your tenure as serving as president and working within community media as a whole over the years?
So I think that the number one biggest change is really not so much about production. Production has steadily become cheaper and cheaper to do. and the quality that you see has gone up and up and up.
Yeah.
So across the country, media centers like this one produce high quality, high-end media products that people can enjoy. And it's not sort of the grainy, hard to watch media that you might have seen in the 1970s or 1980s. That hasn't changed. What's changed is the way people consume media. The audience has become way more fragmented. It's, people only watch one thing when like there's a big national event that occurs, like a presidential debate or the Super Bowl. And then once that event's over, we're all watching our own thing in our own feeds.
Right.
So we've seen sort of this sort of radical adoption of phone and other video delivery device across multiple audiences, starting with younger audiences, but now beginning to seep into older audiences. And along with that, you see a decline in cable viewership.
Sure.
There's just as many people watching video over a broadband connection. There's just as many people. There's more total video being watched right now in America. The length of that video is very short.
Sure. We've seen that here.
And our audience, it's trained audiences to have very short attention spans, which is, I think, a societal problem we have to think about.
Right.
So that's been a big change. I think the other interesting change that I've seen in the last decade, it's been 10 years now, is that we see more and more local news organizations, local culture institutions, come under severe financial strain and disappear.
Yep.
So, like, in small towns across the United States, the newspaper starts getting thinner and thinner. Sometimes it's become a weekly, and then it disappears. It's no longer a daily; it becomes a weekly and disappears. So the ability for Americans to get useful information has radically changed in the last 10 years. Even though we have more information coming at us all the time, we have less pertinent information.
Right. A matter of quantity and quality.
And it's usefulness. Yeah. I mean, I was joking about this with someone the other day. Is you feel like you're in a boat in the middle of the sea and you're dying of thirst. You're surrounded by water, but none of it's drinkable.
Right.
Right. And I think that's the way most Americans feel about media today. Is that it's everywhere.
Yeah.
You can't escape it.
Right.
You're on the subway now, and it's like you see the video walls and things like that. It's like spreadable media is now
getting hit every which way possible.
Right. And that's because advertisers are trying to get your attention. We live in a world of divided attention.
Yeah.
And parents know this.
Yeah.
Everyone knows this.
Yeah.
That demanding people's attention and doing things that are relevant in their lives is like the number one part of the media game. But I think that the change where there's like fewer and fewer local outlets has become alarming.
It has
across the country.
And getting back to the idea of community media centers, we're talking about this oversaturated environment of media being everywhere all the time. What's interesting to me about community media centers like LMC and all of our brother sister stations around the country is that it is creating an environment where people can get engaged, where they have something to experience. It's not just about the content creation, but that idea of being part of a community to create that.
I think that's right. You see that particularly in small towns and suburbs and exurbs. Very often, these are places that aren't really being served by local newsrooms. They're not being served by local broadcast television stations. Only if something bad happens. Right. So being able to tell the story of what's happening in your community and actually see yourself on television is still, it's strangely radical. I mean, we can see ourselves on our phones, certainly.
Right. But there's something to be said for seeing someone on.
Right. That's still very different and still kind of a wow thing.
Right.
And I am not sure what that is. I don't know if it's the specialness of certain classes of media forms that we see, or the expectation that people have that, like, there's the media that we kind of create that's every day, and then there's the media that the media industries do that's different and special. It's like on Netflix, or it's on Hulu, or it's on Peacock, or it's even on network television.
Right.
That still is special for people in their lives. And the other thing I'd say, Matt, it's really true, and I don't know if it's true for people here in the community, but in many communities, if you don't see people like yourself, or you don't see life as you know it, it can be profoundly alienating.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Right?
Yep.
I mean, if everything on the television is coming from someplace else,
right?
The message that's being sent is that your place isn't that special.
Yeah. But that's the
or doesn't
beauty
matter.
Of media centers around the country.
Well, and I think philosophically that's an issue for all of us. Is that I think we all believe that people's stories matter. That there's a certain power to hearing people's stories, to being to amplify people's stories and connect people with one another.
Yep.
And that's always been the case within media systems. I just think that a lot of large media has forgotten it, partly because they're looking at like national or transnational audiences.
Right. Yeah.
You know, a Netflix product is like going to like 20 nations.
Huge appeal versus the hyper-local focus that we all have.
Correct. And I think it makes a difference when you know who you're talking to.
Right.
It really, really does.
Absolutely.
In terms of the message you can send, but also the care that you have when you're communicating with somebody.
Yeah.
You know?
So, taking that into consideration, understanding the importance of having local media centers, how do we protect these great gifts that we have in our communities?
So, I mean, I think the number one thing that organizations like yours and others across the country have to do is you have to tell your story. Why do you matter? Why do you make a difference in people's lives? What's the impact you have on the ground? Yeah. If you weren't around, would it be like the tree falling in the forest with no one around? Or would you actually be missed? What is the difference that you make? Yeah. We have to be telling that story well.
Yeah.
I think the other thing we have to do is we have to ask people to stand with us.
Yes.
And that could be asking people to become donors to an organization, asking people to advocate at the local level or the state or the federal level, to stand up. So if you're engaged with a media center, if it makes a difference in your life or in your child's life or your parents' life, I think we have to ask people to stand with us.
Absolutely.
And depending upon where you are in the country, that advocacy work can be something as simple as coming to a city council to talk about the importance of programs in your life and in the lives of, say, your faith group or your neighborhood or the children who depend upon those programs. It could mean doing fundraising work with the nonprofit to help them raise resources, and then also have people who can stand up and say, I believe in this organization enough that I'm a donor.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like a very powerful thing.
Absolutely.
And then I think also, as we do advocacy campaigns at the state and federal level, it's important for people to have their voices be heard. To tell lawmakers that spaces like this one, services like these, actually make a difference in people's lives.
I couldn't agree more. And this comes at an appropriate time for me to mention that LMC Media's annual gala is being held October 10th here at Mamaroneck Cinemas. Tickets are still available. They can be purchased at lmcmedia.org/gala 2024. All are welcome. All are invited. And Mike, to your point, that's one of the ways that we can continue supporting community media centers like LMC in our community. Mike, if anyone wants to reach out or get any more information on the ACM, how can they do so?
So just go to our website. It's www.allcommunitymedia.org. That's
Great.
allcommunitymedia.org. You'll find out information about what's happening in the field. You'll actually see a map of organizations across the United States, and you'll find ways to be able to contact me and other people that are a part of it.
Mike, on behalf of LMC, on behalf of our community, thank you for all that you and the Alliance do for centers like LMC and all of us across the country. It's been a pleasure having you. Great honor. Thank you for making the trip here. Folks, thank you so much for watching this episode of LMC Cast. For more info, visit lmcmedia.org, and we'll see you next time on the LMC Cast.
Thank you for listening to the LMC Cast Community Profiles, produced at LMC Media's studio on the Avenue. Visit lmcmedia.org to book your time in this state-of-the-art convenient location, walkable from the Metro North train station on Mamaroneck Avenue. You can also support this nonprofit media center at lmcmedia.org/donate.